I'm Carl Arundel, and you're watching In Focus. Now, there are more than 20 firms in Britain that offer Sharia-compliant financial products of one sort or another, more than in any other Western country. Gatehouse Bank is among the leaders in the sector, with its bases in London and Milton Keynes, and its sister company, Gatehouse Capital, is based in Kuwait. Now, Gatehouse Bank celebrates its 10th anniversary this year and currently manages funds in excess of £1.2 billion. Now, the bank describes itself as, and I quote, a Sharia-compliant bank offering savings products and finance for UK commercial and residential real estate, in addition to sourcing and advising on UK real estate investments with a focus on the build-to-rent sector. Now, I'm delighted to be joined today by Charles Haresnape, who was appointed Chief Executive Officer of Gatehouse in May of last year, 2017. Assalamu alaikum, Charles Haresnape, and welcome to In Focus.
Thank you, Carl.
Now, your website describes Gatehouse as a Sharia-compliant bank and says that it has savings products which are ethical by intention and pay an alternative to interest called the expected profit rate, EPR. Can you explain to our viewers what you mean by ethical by intention and what the significance of this expected profit rate is, as opposed to, for example, the normal interest-bearing results that you get from traditional banking?
Sure, yes, Carl. I mean, yeah, we are, just to reinforce, we are a wholly Sharia-compliant bank, UK domiciled. Clearly, we offer a Sharia-compliant savings product, for example. And in that case, we do offer an ethical statement. What are our proof points around that? Well, we can guarantee to depositors what we don't use that money for, which is the important aspect, I think. So, for example, we do not use that money to finance alcohol-related activity. We don't use it to finance gambling-related activity, which is what Sharia-compliant customers actually insist upon, and quite understandably. In terms of the expected profit rate, clearly in the Sharia world, we don't refer to interest rates. It's not appropriate. It's not relevant. The expected profit rate is where technically we share the risk with the customer, and the profit rate may change over time, technically. Out of interest, ever since we've been doing deposits, which is several years, we've always only paid the expected profit rate. That can't be a guarantee, but it's interesting that we've always managed to do that, and therefore we're managing these funds, very carefully. And I think it gives customers that really want a Sharia facility, I think the kind of certainty that with us, they're not getting any hybrid version, they're not getting any straying into conventional deposits.
But if I may interject, many of our viewers will be a little bit cynical about some of the products that they've been presented with, that there are all sorts of manufactured schemes to make a presentation of being properly compliant, but not when you dig deep, you discover that they're actually interest-backed arrangements. Now, how do you ensure that yours are truly have got integrity?
Well, as you might imagine, as a fully established Sharia-compliant bank, we have safety guards in place that customers can hopefully rely upon. A good example is two examples, really. One is we have a board of directors, clearly, as a fully authorised UK bank, but we also have a separate Sharia board, and the Sharia board is there to ensure that our policies, our products, our descriptions are absolutely fully Sharia compliant. So we have this third-party, almost like an audit function, really, that ensures that we adhere to those principles. In addition to that, we employ a scholar internally who's obviously very well versed in the whole aspects of all Sharia principles. And so therefore, we are very confident that anything we issue to our customers has the full Sharia wraparound. And we're very confident that's not in any way, shape or form contaminated by straying into conventional finance.
Now, to most of our viewers, all the mechanics of the Shariah thinking behind finance are going to still be a bit of a mystery, and they'll be hearing all sometimes conflicting stories about how things are constructed. I know that you've said one of your ambitions is to demystify the whole business of Sharia. In which ways do you think you can achieve that?
I think the key thing, just by being proactive and talking to the UK population in particular, is going to help demystify. I think at the moment, because there's very few lenders in this space who specialise, I know you did say there's 20 banks active, there's actually only 5 wholly Sharia banks in the UK. And in terms of personal finance, there's only 1 or 2 very active in that space, in my opinion. So by bringing ourselves into the home finance sector, it means there's more competition, there's more talking about it. We are going to advertise ourselves very proactively going forward. So I think potential customers will understand and hear more about what the aspects of Shariah finance is. And it's incumbent on us to explain to customers in the UK. And just out of interest, we've been doing commercial finance for a long time. We're just now embarking into the personal finance space. So far, at least half of our existing customers don't actually require a Shariah finance facility, but they like it. They get the ethical nature and they like the way we structure transactions. So it's interesting we can provide a Shariah facility, but actually it's an all-encompassing facility that lots of people can take advantage of.
So your audience is way beyond the Muslim community,
yeah,
for example.
we focus very strenuously on the Muslim community, but that said, it's an open facility for anybody who wants to take part in it, but we only offer it on a Shariah-compliant basis.
Now, you boast a range of fixed-term deposit and notice accounts available to all. I mean, I know this. You said this is a relatively new. Retail is a new part of your armoury. You say that they're all protected by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, and at this time of historically low interest rates, I know that we're not dealing in interest at your bank, but do the EPRs, I think we'll use that term, do they offer a good, viable and profitable alternative to the normal interest-bearing accounts?
Well, indeed, Carl. I mean, if you look at the the kind of tables that are published on the internet and compare all banks, whether it be Shariah or non-Shariah compliant, and they're often ranked in rate order, whether it be an EPR or a conventional interest rate. You tend to find the wholly Shariah banks are generally always in the top 25% of facilities, often in the top 1 or 2. So it's very competitive, and I think the reason why perhaps you don't get as much volume take up as perhaps a more conventional bank is just this demystification. We need more people to understand what it means, and I think those people that do actually get it and really kind of buy into the principle really like the fact that it's ethical and a great rate. An ethical and great rate, whether it be EPR or not, what's not to like about that?
Well, look, a lot of people, a lot of Muslims who recognise that in many ways that they have certain obligations under their faith to avoid riba-bearing facilities, are often complaining that they don't have the choices, they don't have the options. They can't go and get a mortgage which is Shariah compliant, so they have no choice but to go to the high street. And they, similarly with their investment vehicles, can they still use that as an excuse, or are you of the opinion that there's enough of a portfolio of products out there to satisfy most retail needs?
Well, interesting. I sympathise with people up until now who do have little choice if they really want a full compliant product. So I think people do compromise, and that's something that might be natural in a way because they need choice. It's becoming less of a reason not to go down the Shariah route because there's more competition now coming into the market. The fact that Gatehouse Bank is coming into the personal finance market actually means there's more competition, there's more supply. Instead of like 1 or 2 lenders, there's now 2 or 3 lenders. That's got to increase competition. And therefore there'll be more voice in the market about what's available. So I think increasing that become less of a reason to go conventional if that's not your preference, because there's more choice in the market. And that's what we're here to bring, basically.
Now, housing, or more appropriately, affordable housing, has been a major issue in the debates in our parliament and across our media over the last few months. I was impressed, I have to say, to see a press brief stating that Gatehouse had been investing quite heavily in the UK private rented sector, as you call it, the PRS, since 2014. And with your published aim, which I found even more interesting, of addressing the UK's housing shortage. I say interesting, it's very unusual to find a financial institution of any sort making such a claim. Now, it's an unusual objective for a financial institution. I was obviously struck by that, but also when I read that Lord O'Neill, on the 8th of December 2015, who was then the Commercial Secretary to the Treasury and the Regeneration Investment Organisation, part of the UK Trade and Investment body, he singled out Gatehouse's PRS programme as a model for how foreign investment can help alleviate the UK's housing crisis. I assume that your appointment last May was due to your many years of expertise in the property sector. You were originally the intermediary mortgage lending director for NatWest and RBS, group mortgage director for Connells, and also, is it Evermore as well that you
Evermore,
yeah. It has always been said that your money is safe in bricks and mortar, I suppose. But can you have a profitable investment project which is also alleviating a housing crisis? Is that possible?
Well, it sounds like a grand claim, but it's a true one, I'm pleased to say. I mean, yeah, for many years now, Gatehouse has actually been the advisor to several funds in the UK. And actually, what we think the government is very keen on with Gatehouse is that we're bringing inward investment, particularly from Sharia-compliant countries, notably Kuwait in our case, where we're bringing investment in to put into new build properties. So we're helping builders by buying bulk properties. We're helping them develop a bit faster in the UK. We're then offering those properties out for rent. So these are brand new properties, typically actually for young families, not so much in the case of flats and more houses. And so obviously we become, or our fund becomes a landlord. So we're a good quality landlord. They look after the properties. We've got very good, occupancy levels. And actually, so what we're doing is ticking a lot of boxes for government policy, actually, of both persuasions. So, we're actually increasing the number of properties that are being built. And in this country, as most people will be aware, there's a huge shortage still of new build housing. I mean, I think the government recently said we need 350,000 new houses a year. At best, it's about 200,000 we're building. A long way to go. Gatehouse Bank is doing its little bit to try and push that number up. So we're very proud of that, and we will continue that part of our business in the future.
Well, it's a bit ironic that we're having a conversation today, and only earlier this week, the Prime Minister, Theresa May, was rebuking the house building associations for not doing their bit.
Sure.
And it seems to me that on the other side, you're being praised by government ministers for setting the ideal example.
Yeah. Don't forget, the financing that we're bringing into that sector and the investment, equity investment, it is wholly Sharia compliant. So actually, it's Sharia compliant investment vehicles that are helping grow the UK housing market, which in itself, I think, is relatively new. It's not innovative, but it's very new. And we've got lots of opportunity to increase our share of that marketplace. So we see it as a big growth area.
Now, I want to move on a little bit to some of the retail high street sort of products that you are now being able to offer. I mean, you said you've only really been in that retail part for just over a year.
Correct.
I did notice that you'd increased the rates payable on your 60-day notice accounts, offering what you refer to as a table-topping 1.15% interest rate. Now, I assume by your statement that you're suggesting the rates are better than the competition. Are the rates the best available across the board, or is this just within Sharia compliant sector?
Sure. I mean, as you know, rates move a lot, day to day between different banks. At the time we issued the press release, I think it's still the case, we were the table topper in that 60-day account. That's a table topper, as in the best rate, across the whole industry, not just in the Sharia compliant banks. So actually, it's a very positive statement that we're here to give good quality products with good pricing to our customers that want a Sharia product. So yeah, top of the table entirely.
Now,
and in an ethical way. What's not to like about that?
It seems that you've got a winning combination. Huh?
There we go.
Now, as I recall, back in 2014, the UK government announced its first major investment into the Sukuk market, becoming what they refer to as the first country outside the Islamic world to issue a sovereign Sukuk. The government confirmed at the time that £200 million of Sukuk was being issued that would mature in July 2019. And they'd been sold to investors in the UK and in the major hubs for finance across the globe. As I understand, this was part of a major strategy to make Britain a key centre for Islamic finance globally. Now, I note that this week you've released projections, Gatehouse released projections indicating a substantial uplift in Sukuk investment over the next decade. Has the UK government strategy worked? And why do you think Sukuk investment is an attractive option for savers?
Sure. So I mean, what a lot of people will not realise, perhaps, is that London is the biggest centre for Islamic finance outside of the traditional Muslim countries. So it's already got a huge step forward in terms of issuing financial instruments that are Sharia compliant. So, why do I see the Sukuk market growing further? Well, as we grow more Sharia-compliant banks, as our product ranges grow, we need more liquidity into the market. Sukuk is a good, Sharia-compliant liquidity vehicle. We've also seen recently one of our competitors issue a Sukuk on a finance-backed, so housing-backed security. Now, again, that's a good model. That happens in the conventional market quite a lot. They call it securitisation. But it's now transcending into the Sharia-compliant finance world, which is great. So I think the more there's competition, the more that our product ranges get recognised internationally.
More creative ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and a lot of innovation in the UK finance market, whether it be Sharia-compliant or not, comes out of London. It's a big centre. Brexit will come and Brexit will go, but in my opinion, London will remain a major financial centre, and therefore Sukuk will grow.
I'm going to touch on this issue in a moment, but before we do that, I noticed that there's been a flurry of Islamic finance conferences taking place here in London. In fact, one just a few days ago at the London Stock Exchange was the Sukuk Summit. And I think you quoted on the back of that that the level of interest in the Sukuk conference this week, I'm citing you, is testament to the potential we've always said was there. This week must not just be a one-off diplomatic effort by the government to entice one large oil company, but to list on the stock exchange. It should be an ongoing trade mission designed to make London the world centre for Islamic finance.
Sure.
Now, I'm not asking you to name which oil company you were referring to.
People may guess.
But is the government engaged in a political exercise short term? Is that what you're getting at? And should they be seeing the bigger picture?
No, I wasn't suggesting that aspect at all. I was saying there's a lot of commentary around one particular issuance of Sukuk. All I was saying, let's not get that out of context. That is a big issue in itself and a big thing to be done. But there's a much broader piece here, which is around developing Sukuk across the industry. And actually what the government has been proactive in saying is they want to support the issuance of Sukuk generally, not just for one very large counterparty. So I take a lot of confidence that there's a desire to grow. I mean, people may wonder what Sukuk is. I mean, generally speaking, it's how we finance liquidity into the finance market. And there's lots of ways in the traditional market of doing that. Sukuk is the Sharia-compliant version. So the more that grows, whether it be with one counterparty or many, fact is it increases liquidity into the marketplace. So we as banks and financiers can actually issue more product to customers. It just gives more choice, more availability, more supply. Right now, I think a lot of customers or potential customers, there's a shortage of supply of product type, actually. And therefore, the more lenders coming in and the more financiers coming in, the more price competition there will be, inevitably. And that's got to be a good thing for the customer.
Now, at one of the conferences, the summit, the Sukuk Summit, the Islamic Development Bank made an announcement. They said they were going to issue $1 billion green Sukuk to finance renewable energy projects. How significant is that announcement?
Well, I think it's huge, actually, because, again, it's just massive growth in the Sukuk market. But the Islamic Development Bank are particularly fantastic at developing, benefits for emerging populations, third world populations. So I believe one of the statistics is that the IDB, the work they do, touches positively 1 in 5 of the world's population. That's an amazing claim. So I think everything the IDB are doing is just fantastic for the UK economy, but particularly around the Sharia-compliant, financing community. Again, it's ethical related. It's green. It's developing benefits for underprivileged people across the world, and there's just lots to like about that. So I'm a big fan of what they're doing. It's huge.
Now, it would be remiss of me not to talk to you about Brexit. It's something that we can't fail, but when you switch on your radio or your television, to be bombarded with on a day-to-day basis. Now, I remember seeing one headline in the autumn of last year, which City urges the government to prioritise Islamic finance ahead of possible Brexit boom. Now, I think they were worried that there wasn't going to be enough legislation in place to protect, safeguard the Shariah finance components in the UK. Is that a serious concern? Has the government taken any steps to safeguard?
Yeah, I don't see it as a problem at all, actually. And the reason I say that is because, ourselves as a UK domiciled bank and others in our marketplace are wholly regulated by both the PRA and the FCA, so the two big Bank of England regulators. So whatever happens to Brexit, we will still be regulated by those institutions. That gives safeguards to customers. It means that we're still regulated by a UK institution, and that will carry on regardless. So, we're not a big multinational bank that's relying on what they call passporting across Europe. We operate in the UK, sometimes with UK customers, sometimes with overseas customers who want to invest in the UK. That will carry on. So, us and a few of our competitors, I see no major change or adverse impact on customers. There might be a little hiatus when people are not sure what's going on. That's happening now, but it will settle down, in my opinion. And certainly in our case, Gatehouse Bank, I see very little impact going forward, irrespective of the outcome.
Well, there's been a lot of talk, though, isn't there, about banks and financial institutions moving to other European city hubs as a consequence of all this uncertainty that you mentioned. One survey indicated around 10,000 finance jobs may shift out of Britain to, Frankfurt or Paris. How will all this affect your projections, the performances of your funds? And is there any truth to the suggestion that Britain's plans to reissue Islamic bonds in 2019, following the country's exit from the European Union, is a panic trigger for strengthening London's ties to the Southeast Asia and the Gulf, the world's two top centres for Islamic banking?
Well, I don't see a major impact. I think there is obviously some discussion about some banks moving abroad, and those are typically the large investment banks who are across border, across continents for that matter. So they have different challenges. I think in this country, the lenders who specialise in Islamic finance, that's not an issue for us at all. And frankly, I've just invested in a commercial property for the bank in Milton Keynes, so I'm not going to go to Berlin. I've just wasted a load of money in Milton Keynes. So we, my opinion, and I can't speak for our competitors, but I think it's probably likely. We've got no plans, zero plans to move our bank anywhere other than the UK. So, it's a different matter if you're an international bank, different pressures to come to bear. And that's something for them to deal with. But for us, I'm only in control of what my bank does. We don't see that as any impact. So I'm not renewing my passport to go to Berlin, let's put it that way.
So back on the Sukuk issue, the issuance of a Sukuk globally stands around $342 billion, apparently, dollars. On the London Stock Exchange, there are 65 Sukuk listed, totalling $48 billion,
correct, making
it a major listing centre at the moment. Can you see London sustaining that position post-Brexit?
I think I can, yes. I think, although there's various commentators, with different points of view, I think at the end of the day, it's very hard not to see London remaining one of the financial centres of the world. Lots of the infrastructure is there. People trust the City of London in terms of how it conducts its finances nowadays. So I don't see, you can never say never, but actually there's no indications at the moment as to why London should lose its share of importance in that market. So I see London being an issuer still of Sukuk in the future, post-Brexit. Definitely.
Well, on that very positive note, Charles Haresnape, Chief Executive Officer of Gatehouse Bank, UK, thank you for joining me on Islam Channel.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you.